It's a Gemini party in the sky with this beautiful, beautiful Gemini new moon conjunct Venus. I want to share with you how, if you are a leader or change maker, how this is the new moon that you need to activate your voice, share your message, and bring your people together to create new ideals. Here we go. Before we dive in, if you want to be notified whenever a new video drops, hit that subscribe button. If you already have, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for supporting this channel, Star Powered with Leslie Tagorda. That's me. Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino-Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. Welcome back, Luminary, to another episode of Star Powered with me, Leslie Tagorda, your brand astrologer. Thank you so much, if you listened to last week's podcast, for allowing me to vent, to share my opinions, because, I was really actually afraid of sharing those opinions, just kind of the backlash that I might get. And instead of backlash, like my original podcast back in October, this time I only received support. Thank you for the emails and the DMs and the comments of standing with me as I learned to share my voice in my most authentic truth. Now, I needed to share my truth with you at that time and, flex my muscles and prepare for whatever attack or persecution or rejection I might face, because my truth was just so loud in me that I really, really need to share and get off my chest. I wanted to share that at that particular time, even though I was scared, because I wanted to set an example to all of us, because there's not one single client that I've ever worked with, no matter if they are an international best-selling author or they are a CEO executive of a multi-million-dollar company, who is not afraid of speaking up and sharing their truth. That is 100% of my clients. And so no matter where you are in your leadership and your entrepreneurial journey or change-making journey, do know that all of us at one time or another are scared, do not know what we're gonna say, do not know if what we're gonna say is going to land, or if we're gonna fail, or we're gonna piss somebody off, or we're gonna get attacked. Okay, this is the truth. This new moon is really here to show us that what we have to say is so important that we can no longer silence ourselves. This is the new moon that you need to activate and open up your voice and to see that your message is so valuable and so powerful, and it has the ability to bring your people together over your cause, over your call to action in your leadership and change making. So today, what I love to do is I want to share all about this beautiful Gemini new moon that happens on Thursday, June 6th at 5:38 a.m. Pacific, 8:38 a.m. Eastern. And it's just the most glorious new moon. I want to talk about what is the Gemini archetype exactly. I want to talk about how, if you are a leader or a change maker, why you need this Gemini archetype really strong in your brand. And then I want to share with you 3 real fears about speaking up and out, and how we can bring awareness to them so that we can untangle their strangle on our voices. Then we'll be talking about the astrology of the new moon in Gemini and how to activate your voice using this Gemini new moon. And then finally, we will end with the horoscopes, how to personalize your new moon's rituals and intentions for this particular Gemini new moon. This for sure is one of those new moons that, if you wanted to put your word out into the world, to teach something, to share something, to write something, to speak something into the world, this is for you. If you're somebody who wishes they could find the words and speak more clearly, this is for you. All right, my friends, let's dive in. I want to bring back a mantra or affirmation that I used to do in some earlier podcast episodes. And I feel that it's really appropriate for this Gemini new moon as we dive into the Gemini party that's currently in the sky and what it means for us to activate a new cycle of our voice. And so, the Gemini new moon mantra that I want to share with you to open up and plant the seed of energy today is the more I amplify my voice, the more I am able to call in my soul opportunities to make change. Let me say that one more time. The more I amplify my voice, the more I'm able to call in my soul opportunities to make change. All right. So let's talk about Gemini. Now, I am a Gemini rising, and let me just tell you, I was one of those people that I thought I was a Sagittarius rising for so long. I had the AM and the PM mixed up in my birth time. And then when I was cleaning out my mom's house, maybe about 7, 8 years ago, when my dad passed, I found my little birth book and my birth certificate and this little plaque that she had. And I realized I wasn't born at 1:42 a.m. I was born at 1:42 p.m. and it shifted my entire chart. So I was no longer the Sagittarius rising. I'm still a Sagittarius moon, so I got more than enough Sagittarius. But now I was a Gemini rising, and I was like, what? I was really upset, to tell you the truth, because there's so much judgment around Gemini, right? We hear that Gemini is two-faced and a gossiper and can never make up their mind, that they whip, they wobble, and they want all this information, and they're unfocused and undirected and all these things. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to be that, because I really did feel like that. Like, I have so many interests. I feel like I can talk as an expert in so many different subjects without being an expert. I absolutely believe that I can see this, and there were so many things that I judged about myself that I didn't see as gifts. So Gemini is not two-faced. Yes, they are the twins, but they are not two-faced. Gemini has the ability to hold a multiplicity of truths. This and, both and, yes and, not no, yes, binary, yes, but, none of that. Gemini wants to open up all of the possibilities and see multiple perspectives. And we live in a world that is not binary. We live in the world that is so multiple, like just the spectrum of the colors and the frequencies and the energies and the diversity of expressions. No wonder we celebrate pride and all of the ways that we love during Gemini season in June. We don't want to judge Gemini for being the Jane of all trades. Gemini is supposed to know a lot about a lot of things, because then it can direct and say, hey, oh, you want to learn about that? Go there. Oh, you like that? Go there. Oh, you like that? I know who you can talk to. And we need this Gemini energy to cross pollinate. That's really what I love, this Gemini energy. We think of Gemini as the social butterfly or the busy bee. And really, these two kinds of like flying creatures in our world, these little insects, they're going about and they're disseminating information across the wind. Hence, Gemini is that mutable air. They're sharing knowledge, they're sharing information, they are being the messenger. Of course, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury in Gemini loves logic, loves intellect, loves fun facts. It was so fun yesterday. My son was going to trivia night and he's like, Mom, what's trivia? And I said, trivia is fun facts. And he's like, ooh, yes, I like fun facts, because who doesn't like fun facts? So, of course, Gemini is fun and friendly. And of course, as an air sign, absolutely social. Now, I have an entire episode on Gemini. And if you don't already know, I have an archetypes audio program that shares with you all of the archetypes in this beautiful leadership and change making way. If you want access to that, simply head on over to my site, starpowered.com/archetypes. It's absolutely free, and it's a program that's going to show you how to amplify your big four energies in your brand positioning, so you know what you're here to do, why you're here to do it, how you're here to do it, and who you are here to do it for. So again, starpower.com/archetypes. So if you want to learn more about that Gemini archetype, definitely go forth and listen to that episode. But if you are a leader or a change maker, you absolutely need to harness your Gemini voice. Now, when we bring it back, Gemini, of course, is about communications, and it's more than simply marketing or social media. It's more than teaching, it's more than storytelling. It's about using your voice to share your truth. And yes, our truths can shift as our values shift, as we know more information. Truth is not static because we are always doing the best that we can do at our particular time. I've been doing this podcast since 2020. And if you listen to my original podcast from 4 years ago, some of them are a little cringeworthy, full of rights and wrongs and ums and ahs. And it took me some time to find my voice. Now, what I'm so glad that I did it without that fear of needing to be perfect, because I needed those iterations and that practice to really be able to find my groove. I would never have been able to find my groove if I didn't start off with my initial ums and ahs and, written out bullet points or written out scripts. I met up with one of a dear cousin of mine who were both kind of entrepreneurial in work. And she was asking me, oh, how do you do your podcasts? Do you write this full script? And sometimes I'll write a little intro or something if I have something very specific that has channeled and I'd wrote it down. But more so than not, I simply have a bulleted list of the topics that I want to cover, and then boom. But when I do my new moon podcasts, every month I have my clients, my highest level luminary clients, my CEOs and my executives who hire me for monthly retainers where I give them astrological advice over the month. And I record for them new moon readings every month. And I like to record those new moon readings because there's themes that start to come out. It's just amazing when you're doing multiple readings over and over and over again, what these new moons and what these energies, how they're sparking everybody's charts and the themes that you get to see. So indeed, I do some pre-work with just reading other clients' charts with their new moons, that really you are now the beneficiary of the culmination of all of that learning. And so when we think about Gemini and using your voice, we all have Gemini in our chart somewhere. And where Gemini exists in your chart shows you where in your life and where in your work you need to bring in more Gemini, where you need to activate your voice, where you need to open your mind to curiosity, where you need to clear your mindset, and where you need to open up your heart to bring in and engage and spark more dialogue. Because I know this podcast and this is my platform, and this is not exactly a dialogue because I'm not really speaking to anybody. I'm speaking to my microphone, I'm speaking to my camera, I'm speaking to the imaginary you, the collective consciousness, but I'm unable to really be creating a dialogue here. But when I'm setting my intentions for all of my work, I'm always wanting to serve you, the listener, the participant, in the way that you are ready to receive. I hope that I'm sparking ideas, sparking inspiration, and sparking an inner dialogue and a new way of thinking and being in you. And so that's truly my intention. And so when you look at your chart for where Gemini is, first house, second house, third house, whatever house it is, even if it's intercepted, that is the area of your life and your work where you are meant to bring in more voice, to be the messenger, to be the voice, to share your wisdom. As I mentioned, I'm a Gemini rising, so I have that Gemini in my first house. Of course, Gemini is part of my leadership. It's how I take initiative, and it is my role. If you have Gemini on your first house or your 10th house, even on your angles, that your Imam Coeli or your descendant, Gemini is a really strong part of your soul structure and how you are meant to bring word and ideas into the world. Of course, if you have your sun, moon, your north node, or any of your dharmic energies in Gemini, you do have this need, this purpose to speak up. And so, as a leader, we all have to speak up because it's the way that we communicate. Now, speaking up, when I say speaking up, this doesn't mean that you have to be shouting, you have to be the loudest person, you have to have all cameras and all eyes on you. We all have different ways of speaking up. We can look to our Mercury to give us an idea of some of the coloring and how we understand and how we use our voice. And we can also look at our third house cusp to give us that vibe and the personality of our voice. There's so much that goes into crafting our voice. I have an entire 4-week intensive just on the Astrobrand method on your star-powered voice and how to capture that in a most aligned way. But that's a little bit too deep for us to go into here and right now. But as a leader, we all have to use our message to communicate. Now, if we have a lot of water energy, sometimes our voice is going to be more in the form of our presence and showing up and holding space and having empathy. If we have a lot of fire, sometimes this is going to be inspiring and leading by example. If we have a lot of air, this is going to be talking and sharing ideas in community to cross-pollinate. And if you have a lot of earth, this is about taking action, holding people close, like my son is all earth, Capricorn, Virgo. And when I know that he's feeling that he needs to be heard, I hold him close and he knows that he's safe to speak up. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that cross pollination, because one of the Gemini gifts, and especially as a leader, is to bring in your people. And bringing in your people, there's no easier way than cross pollinating. Earlier, when I was mentioning those butterflies and those bees in the middle of spring that are taking pollen and they're coming back to their hives, and they're finding water and they're finding sunshine and they're finding the best flowers and the best shade and the best all the best places, they come back to their hive. The bees are not talking to the butterflies are not talking to the birds are not talking to, they might be talking a little bit to each other, but mostly the bees are talking to the bees. Okay, so who are the people in your hive that you are bringing together? Those people that have the shared identity. And this doesn't mean that like we're all women or we're all, brown or we're all curly haired. That's not what I'm talking about identity. What I'm talking about identity is there's this shared commonality, spiritual entrepreneur. Maybe we're the underdog. Maybe we are sometimes have been the overlooked. Maybe we are the people that have are change makers and are leading a new trail that is different from our family or our culture. Those are the types of shared identities that I'm talking about. And that identity, that shared identity, and the actions and the ideas that you create and the ideals that become anew because of all of this cross-pollination, the synthesizing of new ideals that come through, that is the new culture that you are making as your as a change maker and a leader. So I hope you can see that when you are cross-pollinating and sharing your message isn't always for everyone. It is simply for your hive. In roar, this is what we're really talking about. Like when lions are roaring, yeah, the giraffes and the other animals on the savannah, they understand, oh, the lions are up to something, but they're not exactly understanding the nuances and the message and the context that the other lions are hearing. Okay. So when we are thinking about cross pollinating in your leadership, I want you to really be thinking, who are you speaking to? Who is it that has the ability to hear you? And who is it that has the privilege to be able to understand what you are here to say? So, of course, you already know as a leader, you absolutely need to know what you are here to say. You need to know the wisdom that you are here to share that is of so much value. And you need to know who you are speaking to bring in your soul opportunities and people. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it isn't always easy to speak out. And no matter who I've worked with, there hasn't been one person that I've ever worked with, myself included, who hasn't silenced themselves because of fear. Now, silence and being afraid of speaking up and out is a real thing. It wasn't too long ago that you could be, killed or murdered for speaking up. In fact, there's still people in our world that are being killed or put away in prisons for speaking up and out. Journalists, people who are being called heretics, all kinds of people for speaking up and speaking out. Information is so valuable. That's why, when we're doing, there's people who we're kind of moving away from the information age. Like information is at our fingertips, but when we're, I hate to think about like wars and things like that, but like information and inside information is such a valuable thing so that we can be much more strategic. But when we boil things down about the three big things that we fear about speaking up and out, it comes to three things. It comes to rejection, rejection meaning you're not allowed in our community, either you're not allowed in our family, you're being iced out or ostracized or banished, right? And not too long ago, being banished could ultimately mean death because we need people, to survive. And so that fear of rejection is primal, it's real, it is a fear of survival. Then there's the fear of persecution, of being attacked, of being harmed, online bullying. Like I was afraid of being attacked and harmed because people would come out and lash at my sensitive self with emails about how dare I do this and how dare I do that. That being afraid of being lashed out at, even emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, that's really hard. That fear of persecution. Again, it comes back to survival. And the third one that I've noticed is also the fear of failure, the shame of being wrong, of people not being good enough, of not being liked. I don't have anything important to say. Everything's been said already. And that fear of the shame of failure also comes back to this part of our ego that now has died. So all of these fears come directly back to survival, and that often prevents us from speaking up, speaking out, sharing our wisdom, teaching, putting things out there, wanting to write a book, wanting to teach a course, wanting to bring people together, whatever it is, how you will be using your voice to bring people together. But the fact is, we have all been rejected before. We have all been attacked before, and we have all been shamed or failed before. And you know what? We all are still standing. And so this new moon is asking us, what do we have to share? What is our wisdom? What is our message? What is our voice? What is this that we need to bring forth into the world that is too valuable, that we must speak out in the face of rejection, persecution, and failure? Because we have all done these things before and we live in this beautiful, blessed, and privileged world, we are still standing. Most of us live in safe spaces and communities where our lives are no longer in danger. And if you are listening to this, you are likely one of those people. Now, there are billions of people that do not have those same privileges. So when you put things into comparison, can you speak up and face your fears? Because those fears will always be there. I love to tell my clients that these successes, they don't just hang here like they're just this separate fruit and that success is separate from failure. Absolutely not. For every success, the bigger your success is, the bigger failures, as big of failures you've had. Because to me, success and failure, happiness and sadness, joy and grief, when we want to feel the big joy, the big success, the big happiness, we can only feel those because we have experienced the big sadness, the big grief, the big failures. Okay, so know this, that this is not a one or the other. It's not a binary, it's a this and. So, can we use this information so that you can find that courage this new moon to speak up, to plant the seeds of your voice, to share your information with courage in spite of the fear, to know that your wisdom is too valuable to lose if you don't speak up? Okay, so let's look at the astrology of the new moon in Gemini so you can see how the stars are supporting you at this time. Let me share my chart with you. Okay, so remember, I live in San Francisco. So this chart is cast from San Francisco. Don't mind the houses because depending where on the earth you live, the houses will be set up differently. For right now, we are going to be looking simply at just the planetary placements and the aspects that the planets are making between them. And so you can see that this new moon is just one of the most beautiful new moons that we have had all year. We've had such a hard year up to now. Things will get a little more prickly again at the end of the year, but this beginning eclipse season with all of that Chiron energy, even though it was not comfortable, it was very empowering because it really got us in touch with our truest gifts. Yet not comfortable, right? And all of like the Uranus Jupiter energy, although it's giving us this big expansion and this big upgrade, again, anytime there's Uranian energy, it doesn't always feel comfortable because it's really tapping in and activating our nervous systems. Whew. And then Mars, is with Chiron, all these things. You've lived through it, you know what happened. But now we have this Gemini party. It is definitely a time where we feel like going out, socializing, having fun. And please, please, please do that. Gather with your people, with your friends. If you feel like you're in a current community where you don't have a lot of people in your vicinity, meet out online. Go find your people. You are not alone. Okay. So our Gemini party right now consists of Jupiter at 2 degrees of Gemini, Mercury in its home sign of Gemini at 6 degrees, the sun, the moon, and Venus at 16 degrees of Gemini. I love that this new moon is conjunct Venus. You know that Venus is the planet of connection and attraction. Venus connects us to the people and the resources that we need to thrive. At this time of the new moon, this is shortly after our beautiful Sun Venus cazimi. We cannot see Venus in the sky yet because she's blinded by the sun. She's still in that cazimi. But she is officially shifted from that morning star phase where she's that warrior goddess into the evening star phase where she's this beautiful, beautiful, receptive love goddess. Things that were, hard over the last few months while Venus was a morning goddess, really fighting inner oppression and fighting for her rights and, really hustling and working for her money and just not taking no. Now she's in this receptive phase. Later in the summer, when Venus and the sun start to separate, we'll be able to see Venus in the western horizon shortly after sunset. It's just going to be absolutely beautiful as Venus starts to pick up light in the sky, and we get to see her and we get to just bask in her beauty. But because Venus is attached to this particular new moon, this means that we're planting in Venusian energy into our Gemini new moon. So activating our voice will bring value, will bring in our people. So if Venus is, money, affluence, influence, beauty, grace, people, connections, all of this, I want you to plant this in with what your voice and your message is capable of, bringing in wisdom, bringing in value, whether this is you need a little bit of money help, whether you need, to tap into the value of your seeing your words, whether you want help with connecting to your people, your tribe, more so customers, your community, whatever that is, bring that into your new moon intention with Venus. Now, the ruler of this Gemini new moon, of course, is Mercury. Mercury is moving very, very fast right now. Mercury is moving about 2 degrees a day, 2.5 degrees a day. It's zipping through Gemini. It's only going to spend the 2 weeks in Gemini with this particular new moon all the way to the full moon. Mercury will be then diving into Cancer. I know I'm going to be harnessing this fast track energy. I'm not going to tell you what this is yet exactly for, but I'm working on an epic proposal that I feel is so soul aligned, and it is a dream come true. So I'm going to be using this Gemini new moon and Gemini Mercury over the next 2 weeks to put this proposal together that I'm hoping is just going to change the trajectory and just make my lifelong dream come true. So say some good vibes for me, please. more. I'm not gonna spill the beans just yet. So Mercury is zipping through Gemini, and so really make sure that if I don't have anything to say, I don't know what to say, I don't know enough yet, I want you to really tap into I now know. I now know what I'm here to say. I now know my words are valuable because the way I say it, my lived experiences, there is no one else like me to be the messenger. Okay. You're going to have to go back and record that because that was just channeled. I know it was powerful. Go back, roll back about 10 seconds and re-listen to that. If that felt like you and you're like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what my message is, that was for you. And then coming back to Jupiter. Jupiter, yes, is the planet of expansion, but remember that Jupiter expands whatever it touches. And so if you're feeling doubtful, if you're feeling afraid, if you're feeling constricted in judgments and limiting self-beliefs, guess what's going to get expanded? Yes, your limiting self-beliefs. They're just going to strangle you even more tightly. So this Jupiter is really asking you to examine your limiting beliefs around your voice, to give gratitude for what you have learned, for how far you have come to be able to speak up for yourself, giving gratitude for all of the wisdom that you have already gained, giving gratitude for all of the mindset and mindset work that you've already done to open up, and then expand even more. Open up your beliefs, because all beliefs at some point are limiting beliefs. So how can you expand the beliefs that you want to hone in? I believe in you. I believe in your voice. I believe in your wisdom to speak to those that need to hear it. What do you believe? So harness that Jupiter to be able to open up your beliefs. Now, on that same vein, this new moon is squaring Saturn. And when we have a square to Saturn, there are boundaries. Okay. When we think of boundaries, we can, just like when we, maybe if you've been on Facebook or on Instagram and you said something that you didn't want somebody else to say, maybe there's family members of yours that share different beliefs and you don't want to hear what they have to say. You don't want to fight with them, you just want to be able to say what you have to say. Maybe there are boundaries, maybe there are people that you have to say no to find your bravery, like, hey, this message isn't for you. Maybe there are people that you have to finally say, I don't want to work with you or be with you or partner with you anymore. What kind of boundaries maybe do you also want to plant in this new moon intention? Some of these boundaries might also be about how to respond and flex your muscle when somebody says something that you don't agree with. So, for example, I've been practicing this muscle too. Recently, we've been finding people that are using some of our IP or intellectual property assets, and having to figure out a plan that is kind, because I want to lead with kindness, to be able to speak to people, to ask them to stop using my intellectual property without licensing, and to stop using my intellectual property without having to go through lawyers and doing, the heavy-handed cease and desists. And so for me, this is being proactive and writing some of my terms and conditions, and writing some language that will maybe face up to perceived attacks, or not, that's not exactly the right word. Another one was like, I think if you're on my email address, on the PS I put, kindly, if you have judgments that you're going to project on me, please keep them to yourself. These are kind of like little caveats and addendums that say, hey, if you're gonna do this and act in a bad way or act against what I'm putting forth, like, just keep it to yourself. Right? So thinking about these little boundaries, how are these little boundaries, how might you want to start to fortify and put up your boundaries and your defenses and your protections, so that as you speak up, you can be prepared when people maybe don't agree with you or maybe fight back. Because the louder our voices get, the bigger we become as leaders and change makers. There are always going to be people that don't agree. And so how do we create our own protections and our defenses? And that's what Saturn here is telling us. All right, my friends. So can you see this beautiful new moon not only wants you to believe in your voice, not only wants you to see that your voice is of value and that it has the ability to bring in your people. And this also is asking you to protect yourself from your fears. You can't really protect yourself against your own fears, but you can say, thank you, fear. I see and acknowledge you. I'm going to take this risk anyway, and give gratitude for everything that you've learned already to speak up. I believe in you. Because ultimately, this new moon is saying you have learned now that your roar of gratitude, appreciation, and wisdom is made all the more rich and beautiful because of the whimpers and whispers of the past. Okay, so let's get into our Gemini new moon personalization, so that you can personalize your new moon, because this is one that you need to do. Set your intention, plant your seeds to activate your voice. If you follow me on Instagram, make sure you look for my new moon in Gemini post. I'll have more journaling, reflections, and prompts for this Gemini new moon that will help you get to your intention. So for this Gemini new moon, today you are planting the seeds to contribute your powerful voice and cross-pollinate your ideas to get people together. If you are an Aries or have 16 degrees of Gemini in that third house, you are planting the seeds of your voice in your teachings that spread your ahead of the time ideas. Maybe this is, you want a new marketing plan or a social media plan, or you want to figure out how you're going to share and market and promote and teach your work, or how you're going to really fine tune your voice. this is for you, Aries. If you are a Taurus rising or have second house activated with Gemini of 16 degrees, you are planting the seeds of your powerful voice and cross pollination of ideas that are curiosity driven, that creates value, that creates wealth, that creates return on investments. Your word is your money. If you're a Gemini rising like me or have that first house being activated, today you're planting the seeds to bring your powerful voice together in your thought leadership, a role that initiates with engagement, with dialogue, and curiosity. If you're Cancer rising or have this in your 12th house being activated, you are doing behind the scenes work, philanthropy, and activism using your voice. So definitely keep on using, finishing up loose ends and finding your voice and finding that spiritual connection to your soul that your voice needs to come through. If you're a Leo rising or have the 11th house activated, today you're planting the seeds to contribute your powerful voice through your social mission oriented community and collective. So for my Leo folks, my Leo rising folks, really you're putting your communities together. You're creating a culture, a collective over a shared message. For my Virgo friends, you are planting the seeds of your powerful voice and your cross pollination of ideas and teaching through the delivery of clear, thought provoking offers and expertise. When I think about that 10th house, if you have that midheaven in Gemini, your work that you are here to do indeed is about sharing information, about teaching, and knowing that you are the expert. Okay, my friends, if you are a Libra or have a Libra rising or have that ninth house being activated, this is about finding your voice in your purpose. Your voice is part of your purpose here on earth, that you can use your voice to expand and inspire your hive's mind. If you're Scorpio and you have an eighth house with this Gemini of 16 degrees, this is so interesting because Scorpio risings need to learn to trust themselves. And with Gemini in the eighth house, this is about you learning to trust your voice, learning to trust your words, learning to trust how you will transform your own mindset and to use your words for deep healing. That when you can express what you're feeling, you can get all of that gunk out. So your words are healing. If you're a Sagittarius rising or have a seventh house activation, your words really bring your co-creators, your partners, your affiliates. You are here to partner and commit with other curious thought leaders. If you're a Capricorn rising or have this in your sixth house, today you're planting the seeds to contribute your powerful voice to change systems, whether this be systems in your business or systems in the world that are learning oriented, that are equitable, that are strategic, and that are part of our daily wellness. Okay, so it's interesting, right, that having Gemini on the sixth house, how can we create more social systems? For my Aquarius friends, my Aquarius rising friends, if you have this in your fifth house, this is for you to create use your voice and your messaging and your curiosity for heart-centered passion projects that cultivate inspiration. Maybe you start a book club, or maybe you start a learning social club or something like that, but where you're bringing people together over fun learning projects. Now, if you're a Pisces rising, lastly, if you're a Pisces rising or have the bottom of your chart, that fourth house activated, knowing that your voice, you are a channel and that you create sacred spaces for yourself and your hive. Hone into the words that come from the roots, come from your ancestry, come from your legacy. You are a channel and can bring up and channel the wisdom from lost generations. All right, my friends. Well, I hope you enjoy this most beautiful Gemini new moon. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found this podcast or this YouTube useful, please share it with your business besties. That would be the most amazing way to pass forward this Gemini cross pollination, is to share this information with people you know who could use this Gemini new moon. All right, my friends, until soon. Bye for now. Leslie Tagorda. As a human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.